He always told us never to get married and don't have children, right? Because he really demanded allegiance to him. When I got married, it was 1971, and I still wanted to dance. And I went in to tell him that I was getting married, and I knew he was not happy. He was not happy. And he said to me, "Well, I hope you're never going to have a baby, dear." And I said, "Oh, no, I know. You know, I'm not going to have a baby now. I want to dance." And it didn't quite end up that way. But I did have a baby, but I was already out of the company by then. Very few people had children while they were dancing. Now it's different. Everybody's married, everybody has kids and comes back to dancing. In my day, it didn't happen that way.
What did it feel like when you told someone who was someone you really looked up to that you told him you wanted to get married and you could sense he wasn't happy? How did that feel?
I was concerned because I suspected that it might have meant that he would lose interest in me, and actually he did. He did. But it wasn't just the marriage. I sort of had a weight issue, and I would lose, he wanted me to lose weight and be thinner. He didn't want anorexia. That was not what he wanted at all. But I was just a little bit too heavy, and I would lose the weight. I would go on a diet, and I would lose the weight, and then he would reward me. And then, unfortunately, I would gain it back. I didn't maintain it. And so he was very patient with me. He waited a long time for me to just remain in that ideal weight. And after a while, I got older, new people came into the company, and he did lose interest. He did. And I understood why, right? It was, I actually was going to a psychiatrist to find out why I couldn't keep that weight down. And it wasn't that I needed to starve myself. I didn't. And I think I figured out that I was conflicted about having so-called normal life with a marriage and a family, or becoming a ballerina where I would have to choose between the two. And that was, I think, my fear. And that is what held me back. So I think I was actually self-sabotaging myself by gaining the weight back. Although I have to say, I got to dance wonderful things over the years that I was there. So I'm not complaining, you know. I still got to dance beautiful ballets. He even choreographed for me, Who Cares? I was an original cast member in Diamonds, Jewels. I mean, I can't, that wasn't punishment.
How do you feel looking back at your, thinking about that version of yourself, that younger self? What do you kind of feel when you think about that time?
I'll be honest, I have regrets. I do. I said, if only I had, when you say, if only I had done this, if only I had done that, I find myself at times saying that, right? Despite the fact that I had a wonderful career in the New York City Ballet. I mean, I was a soloist, right? And having had the opportunity to work with him, I mean, what could have been better? Students have said to me, well, when you left the company, did you go to another company? I said, I didn't. That That was it. I felt I had danced with the best and for the best. Now, other dancers did go to other companies. Other people who left went to other companies, went to ballet theater. Right, but at that point, you see, I was married. And that was, my life had changed.
Did you ever meet Balanchine again after you had left the company?
I did. I would go to the ballet and I would go backstage. And my first husband divorced me and got involved with my best friend. It was a really nasty scene. And Mr. Balanchine always used to say, well, don't get married, dear, because then if you get married, you lose your identity as a dancer. You become Mrs. Doctor, Mrs. Lawyer, right? Your husband takes over and you lose your identity. Well, in a way, that's what happened to me with my first husband. He was a doctor, it turned out. I did feel that I had lost my identity as a dancer because of him. So when I went backstage and I saw Mr. Balanchine and I told him, I was still looking for his approval, right? I told him, Mr. B, you were right. You were right. I did lose my identity. He said, dear, you should listen to me. You should always listen to me. And I'll never forget that. That was really quite an interesting interaction.
Tell me about, you mentioned it, and it's evident in his work, but his love of women. Where do you think that kind of stemmed from, and how did that kind of shape the ballets he made?
It was artistic. They were artistic relationships. His marriages were artistic relationships. They inspired him. They were his muse. Yeah. Right? And when I tell my students who are so far removed from that time, well, he was a dirty old man. I say, no, he wasn't. I mean, he had relationships with some of the girls, and today, with the Me Too era today, I'm not so sure how that would fly, right? But it was a different time. It was a different time. So when I tell my students that he wasn't a dirty old man, they don't understand what it was. It was not anything ugly. I had girlfriends in the company who he took out to dinner and whatever, right? But it didn't stop him from giving me a role. He did ask me to dinner, and I was afraid to go out with him alone, right? I was afraid that if I would have to reject him or something, I didn't want to be in that position. And so I declined to go to dinner. But even though I didn't allow that to happen, he still gave me lovely things to dance. So it wasn't necessarily like a casting couch, that if you sleep with me, then I'll give you a role. I mean, it didn't work out. It wasn't that way, right?
What was it like at the time to see, him work with the muse, and to kind of see him slowly kind of artistically and maybe not artistically fall in love with them?
Well, it was difficult for a lot of the company members to watch this. There was jealousy, naturally, right? You'd expect it to be that way. He would, with Suzanne Farrell, now once again, he would leave the theater with her after she danced, and he wouldn't watch the rest of us. He always used to stand in the front wing and watch us. And then when he fell in love with Suzanne, he would go to dinner with her and nobody would be there. Some of the older ballerinas were really upset.
Of course. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be a muse and then be replaced
Yes.
by someone younger.
And, even Suzanne, even Suzanne had said that the reason she didn't marry Balanchine was she didn't want to be one of those muses who got dropped for someone else.
It's a really fascinating dynamic. Do you think that... Did you ever envy them to be in that position? Did you ever kind of regret your decision to decline the dinner?
No, I didn't. And I felt that he was interested enough in me to give me lovely things to dance, and I was okay with that. I actually I really did feel that Suzanne and I had a good relationship. We were not really close friends, but I didn't feel any jealousy. I really didn't. I know some of the dancers in the company with me were insanely jealous of her. I didn't feel that way.